Why do big bucks show up in the same place every year? What drives them? Food, cover, does, all of the above?
Let me add one more. They need a feeling of safety.
If you have one of those things, two, not happening. You need all four.
This is Land of Whitetail TV.
Do you want to shoot the biggest buck of your life? Or at least the biggest buck you can this season? Well, you're in luck because I've got the Cliff Notes right here that can help you get the job done.
There are bucks, and then there are legends. Legends that may only show up in trail cameras or as a flash in the deer woods.
How can you find these big bucks? A new piece of gear, a new tree stand, yeah, this stuff helps. That's not how you find these big bucks. That's not how you get in position to kill these deer. You have to know deer to be able to hunt deer, and you have to know mature deer to know how to hunt them successfully.
I do a lot of public land hunting, and I'm talking about pummeled public land ground that's open to everybody, where you pull up to that 120-acre parcel and there's 6 vehicles in the parking lot on a weekday morning. Even there, I'm able to shoot 3.5-year-old and older bucks. Why? Because I focus on finding that location they feel safe. Even in those pummeled areas, they will have this little corner that no one else goes. Maybe it's too hard to get to. Maybe it's right next to the parking area and no self-respecting hunter would go there. Mr. Big is there. Why? Because if he acted like he was supposed to, he wouldn't be Mr. Big in those settings.
I just came off an Illinois bow hunt where I put 45 hours in a tree stand. I don't know about you, but for me, that's a long time to sit still. I was so ready to get out of the tree and put my boots to some turf. And I can't think of a better backdrop than the sand hills of Nebraska. I mean, this place is incredible. Not only is it a game-rich environment, but it's a place where you can just get out and do a classic spot and stock hunt. It doesn't take a lot to imagine what this must have looked like during pioneer days, what the sandhills must have looked like. And truthfully, for the frontiersmen, it was basically just an impediment from where they were, the east, to where they wanted to be, the west. I don't know, myself, I would have probably got out here, taken one look around and thought, this is where I want to be. Yeah, if I would have come through here a century and a half ago, I would have been a squatter. The thing about Nebraska in November, the weather can be fickle. We found that out the very first morning. We woke up, it was snowing. We flipped on the Weather Channel, 2 to 4 inches on the way. All we could do is get out and try though. We knew that visibility was going to be poor. We know we were going to be limited because we were really counting on being able to get up high and do a lot of glassing around, but that's what we were going to do. So we got in the truck, we went out into the prairie, we got up on a hill and we started glassing. And right from the get-go, we could see that it wasn't going to work. We could see maybe 200 yards. We just didn't have the visibility we needed to be able to really look over a large area. So all we could do is get out and do a little bit of walking, you know, hoping we could jump something. We drove around a little bit, tried some other areas, but basically, we were just killing time. The snow let up, but the wind kicked in. And as soon as the wind kicked in, I mean, everything just turned deathly quiet. We saw no deer. There was nothing moving out on the prairie. Everything was hunkered in the tree lines, probably in the swamps. Wherever they could get out of the wind, that's where the deer were. We didn't see a deer all afternoon. I don't think it was until about a half an hour before sundown that we finally saw our first buck of the day. It was a decent 8-pointer, but he was young, didn't have a lot of mass, and he was right exactly where you would expect him to be. He was right on the lee side of a shelter belt, tucked in out of the wind. We saw him and a couple does. We watched them till dark, and then we just pulled out of there. But I guess we were kind of optimistic that with the snow and then the wind blowing all day, the deer would hunker down during the night, and maybe we'd see a little more movement the next morning.
Land of Whitetail is brought to you by Cuddyback Digital, more deer, fewer blanks. By Sig Sauer Electro Optics, never settle. By Thompson Center, America's master gunmaker. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. And by Scent Killer Gold with Hunt Dry Plus technology. Apply it, dry it, and go hunt.
Coming up next.
So now we get a giant whitetail, and we're trapped. We can't get out of the truck. He's standing like 150 yards down there. He doesn't know we're there, but we can't get out of the truck. So we just have to wait him out. So we watched him, and sure enough, he kind of drifted up, jumped over the fence, and worked around the base of the hill. That was our time. That was our chance to get out of the truck and go after him.
This is Land of Whitetail. This segment of Land of Whitetail is brought to you by Matthews.
So what does it mean by knowing deer? Knowing what makes deer tick. When they move, where they move, why they move. Their biology. It's like you're in high school. When am I going to use this again, we always say. When you're learning about biology or math or whatever, when am I going to use it? You're going to use it again in the deer woods. You're going to use what you learn about deer behavior as to trying to predict that buck's next move. Trying to predict where he's coming out of, where he's bedding, why he's bedding there, and how you can get in there in position with your tree stand or your ground blind, and he's not going to know you're there.
To get to be Mr. Big, a buck has to do a lot of things right. But you can set yourself up to get him.
It's not a cliche. A big buck didn't get to be big by being stupid. He knows the game. He knows what it takes to be big, to live to maturity. And what does this mean? It means that when he gets older, his home range shrinks. Why is that? Because he knows where he's safe. He knows where he can get what he needs, where he can get food, where he can get water, where he can get breeding opportunities, and where he can bed where he's not going to be in danger.
And yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's that work and the reward in the end that makes this something special and provides a memory that's going to last you for a lifetime. Not just killing the buck, but figuring him out and determining how you're going to kill him. So I'm hunting in Nebraska, and I'm hunting for Mr. Big. Man, when we got up the next morning, the weather had gone from bad to worse. The snow had stopped, but now the wind was blowing 20 miles an hour, and it was -4 degrees. Do the math, we're talking about -20 wind chill. We're gonna go back out, we're gonna try to get high and do some glassing. At least now we'd have the visibility. So if the deer were moving, at least we would be able to see them. But you know, to tell the truth, I wasn't real optimistic that the deer would be moving in this wind. I mean, it was bucking. You could feel it in the truck. You could feel it when you got out. It was bitter cold, and that wind would just like eat right through you. Well, we pulled up onto the hill. We parked the truck. I don't think we were there 15 minutes, and Scott reached over and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Got a buck right down below us." And sure enough, you know, it was still pretty dark, but you could see this big-bodied deer was just moving along at the base of the hill below us. And I mean, it was obvious that it was a buck, and it was obvious that it was a decent buck. Okay, so now we get a giant whitetail, and we're trapped. We can't get out of the truck. He's standing like 150 yards down there. He doesn't know we're there, but we can't get out of the truck. So we just have to wait him out. The good news is it's getting lighter now. It's getting into shooting light. We just need him to move off so we can get out of the truck and go after him. So we watched him, and sure enough, he kind of drifted up, jumped over the fence, and worked around the base of the hill. That was our time. That was our chance to get out of the truck and go after him. That cold wind nearly took my breath away when I got out of the truck, but I was so pumped to go after this guy, I just ignored it. I mean, we saw him go around the base of the hill. We thought if we could sneak around the other side, maybe get up high, we could sneak up to the rise and maybe get a shot at him. So we started working our way around the base of the hill, and then all of a sudden, we looked over and he was coming up over the top of the hill. He had turned around and was coming back toward us, and you know, I didn't even get my rifle up. He saw us, he busted, and off he went. I ran up, got down on the sticks, hoping that he would run out there and stop. All I had was his tail going across the prairie, and I wasn't going to take that shot, so I just let him run out of my life.
You want to kill Mr. Big? You ask yourself what he wants on any given day during each phase of season. You put yourself in position to capitalize on that.
Bucks are individuals. No two are alike. And if they get to a certain age, they are probably not moving areas.
It means that when he gets older, his home range shrinks. Why is that? Because he knows where he's safe. He knows where he can get what he needs, where he can get food, where he can get water, where he can get breeding opportunities, and where he can bed where he's not going to be in danger.
It took me nearly 30 years to shoot my best buck. He went over 200 inches, and believe it or not, I never saw that buck until the brief few seconds we had a face-to-face meeting. No, I wasn't a great hunter. I was in the right place at the right time. Now, am I gonna have a chance at a buck like that again in my lifetime? I hope so, and I'm hoping you do too.
The mindset of a hunter can also change when they target big bucks.
Largely, it's a motivation. You're motivated by that mature deer, by those antlers. It's not that you hunt them that much differently because deer are deer are deer, but I think the motivation factor is there because this is a special deer. So I'm hunting in Nebraska and I'm hunting for Mr. Big, and we actually saw the deer. We saw the buck that I wanted the second morning, and we almost got a shot at him, but we had to let him run. The angle just wasn't quite right. I wasn't comfortable with taking the shot. Now, we hadn't given up on him completely. We really didn't feel like we bumped him that hard. I think more than anything, he just saw some movement and he just wanted to get out of there. And we could tell that he ran over to a shelter belt that was probably, maybe a quarter of a mile away. So our next plan was to go over and set up on another hill and just watch that shelter belt. He'd probably come out of that shelter belt, and it was my feeling that at some point he's going to come out of there again and go about his business and wherever he was planning on going. And there might be other deer in there as well. So we worked around the base of a hill, got up high, got set up, and just hunkered in and decided just to wait it out. But let me tell you, that wind was cold, it was blowing. You could just feel your core temperature dropping. We were going to be able to sit there for a while, but we were not going to be able to sit there all day. I think it was about the time I couldn't feel my fingers or my toes anymore when things started to happen. The deer started to come out of that shelter belt, and they were basically just loafing around on the edge. They were on the lee side of the shelter belt, so they were out of the wind and they were happy campers. I think they were coming out to soak in some sunshine, and we saw one nice little buck. In fact, I think it was the one we saw the night before, and he was chasing does around, giving us a really good look, and you could see them coming in and out of the shelter belt. And at that point, I was really thinking that big buck's got to be really irritated by this. Either he's going to come and chase off that little buck, or he's just going to bolt out of there. So I was still optimistic that we were going to get another look at him. I think we'd been there about an hour and a half, and I was just starting to think, how long are we going to sit here? I think Scott probably was thinking about leaving too. I mean, we were just getting so cold. It was time to pull out, and just by chance, we looked down the tree line, and way out in the field there was another buck, a second buck, and he was coming our way. So we just watched him wondering, okay, what's this guy going to do? And he got even with the shelter belt, and I think he either saw the does or he smelled them, but he just turned and made a beeline and started coming up the edge of the shelter belt. At this point, he was probably, still 300 or 400 yards away, but it was obvious he was going to come in, and it was obvious to me that if he did, I was probably going to take a poke at him. At this point, I think I was probably shaking uncontrollably, but I figured if the buck got into the shelter belt across from us, it would be about 130, 140 yard shot. And even in the cold and the wind, I thought I could probably pull that off. So I just stayed patient. I could see he was going to come. He was really interested in the does. So I just figured if he stayed on this travel lane that he was on, he was going to give us an opportunity. So we just enjoyed the show. He came in, you could see he was fairly aggressive. I think one of the does there must have been an estrus, the one that other buck had been chasing around, because he was very interested in those does. So I just let him come in. He came closer and closer. I did a little bit of chasing around, and the first opportunity that he gave me a broadside shot, I took the post. Bam, I slammed him right behind the shoulder, and he took off like a madman. And you know, there's always that second doubt when you take a shot. I mean, this deer fired out of there like he wasn't hit. I saw him go down. I knew we had our buck. Was he Mr. Big? No, Mr. Big won this time. Mr. Big got away. But am I happy with the deer I shot? Absolutely. I was thrilled to bring this buck back to Minnesota with me. You know, coming to a place like the Sandhills, and like I said, I come out here a lot, but it's always a new experience, always a different experience. This time, I got to knock another thing off my bucket list, I guess. I got to spot and stalk whitetails in just an incredible environment here. So now, next time I can say I've hunted turkeys, grouse, coyotes, mule deer, and I've hunted whitetails out in the Sandhills. And I can tell you, it's an experience you'll never forget.
Land of Whitetail is brought to you by Cuddyback Digital, more deer, fewer blanks. By Sig Sauer Electro Optics, never settle. By Thompson Center, America's master gunmaker. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. And by Scent Killer Gold with Hunt Dry Plus technology. Apply it, dry it, and go hunt.
Growing Big with Steve Bartilla.
When it comes to laying out a property, we all want quick, easy solutions to things. Okay, what is the best food plot? What seed should I be planting on my property? How should I lay out my property? What method did you use so I can go ahead and apply it to my ground? It's for those of us who are serious and have a burning desire to improve our property. It's a copycat league just like football. We want to figure out what works for other people and replicate it on our place. There's a key problem with this, and that is every single property is different. Every region is different. Every neighboring property is different. How much pressure do they have? What's the topography like? What's the mix of open ground to timber? Is it an ag region? Is it a heavily forested region? Cookie cutters just don't work. They don't, because every single property is different. So what we need to do, our job as managers, is to get out there and learn our ground. We have all sorts of tools at our disposal. You know, there's hinge cutting. Just in hinge cutting, you can create blockades, you can create bedding areas, you can create edge feathering. You know, those are good things, okay? But that's not the only way to skin a cat. We can also plant trees. We can plant native grass mixes to add cover. There's our cover and bedding right there. You know, we can go ahead and use fencing if we want to go ahead and blockade deer. There's a ton of different tools out there at our disposal, and that's what we want to do as managers. We want to learn what all can we do. Okay, then we get out to our ground, we tear it apart. How are the deer using it? How can we tweak this property a little bit to make it so that we have high odds, low impact stand sites, make it so the deer don't realize we're there. What you do is you analyze the property and then you look at the toolbox. You know, do I want to use edge feather? Do I want to create a kill plot? Do I want to create a blockade? No. Do I want to create screening? Where do I want the screening to be? How can I set up my mock scrapes so that I waste as much time with those bucks as possible? Because every second they waste on my ground, they're not over on the neighbors. Okay, and you know what? They jumped the fence. That neighbor has every right in the world to shoot that deer, and all we should do is congratulate them for it, no matter how much it might sting, because they have every right to do that, just like we have every right on our property to do what we can to improve the hunting. But do not look for that magic bullet, that magic habitat improvement plan. You know, I'm just gonna go ahead and take sidewalks and clover snake trails and hinge cut bedding areas, and I'm gonna create a racetrack around my property, and the bucks are gonna jump on that racetrack, and they're gonna go round and round and round and round and round in circles all day long, and I'm gonna kickle the heck out of them. No, that's not gonna happen. Okay, you have to match the improvements to your ground. You do that, and you are so much further ahead.